On December 9, 1999, a Marine Corps Boeing Vertol CH-46D Sea Knight helicopter approached the USS Pecos oiler under favorable weather conditions 14 miles off the coast of San Diego. The breeze was gentle, visibility was ideal, and the temperature was cool. However, the afternoon would turn into complete mayhem when the Marines helicopter with 18 men on board crashed into the U.S. Navy vessel during routine operations in an otherwise uncomplicated training mission. Footage of the incident shows how the helicopter was then thrust into the Pacific, and in less than 10 seconds, the exercise became a real-life emergency and a race against the clock to find and rescue any potential survivors. Routine operations. 18 Marines from the 15th Expeditionary Unit, based at Camp Pendleton, were on their way to carry out a routine training exercise aboard a Boeing Vertol CH-46D Sea Knight helicopter on December 9, 1999, 14 miles off Point Loma in San Diego, California. The aircraft had earned a favorable reputation in its nearly 4 decades of service, but that was about to change. The CH-46 had been preparing for a 6-month assignment along with several ships and their crews. The following month, the Marines would be deployed to the Persian Gulf as part of the Bonhomme Richard Amphibious-Ready Group. That afternoon, the Special Operations Command pre-deployment workup exercise was to be conducted as a joint operation with the Navy SEALs. The sailors were aboard their boats, ready to carry out an assault from the sea. Prior to the drill, the Marines lugged assorted weapons and several breaching tools, including 16-pound hammers to break hatches and 30-pound torches to cut through locks. Then, at 12:47 p.m., the helicopter, Naval Bureau number 154790, assigned to the Marine Medium Helicopter Squadron 166, took off from the deck of the USS Bonhomme Richard Amphibious Assault Helicopter Carrier. Approaching Pecos. The first of 5 helicopters, the Sea Knight lifted off with half of the 5th Platoon, 1st Reconnaissance Company of the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force, dubbed the 1st Force Recon. The helicopter was so packed that a first lieutenant had to sit on an ammunition can, as the rest of the boarding crew sat on 2 benches along the cabin. The flight then proceeded uneventfully for several miles on their way to USNS Pecos. A Henry J. Kaiser-class replenishment oiler, Pecos was fitted with a helicopter platform to allow for at-sea transfer of personnel and supplies. As a non-commissioned vessel in service, with a primarily civilian crew of 89, Pecos was sailing under the control of the Military Sealift Command and under contract with the Navy. In fact, 6 Navy personnel were on board that day. Roughly 20 minutes after takeoff, the helicopter was given approval to approach the oiler. They had 10 miles of flight visibility and a gentle breeze not exceeding 3 knots. The helicopter then headed toward the ship at an initial speed of slightly more than 100 miles per hour and an altitude of 100 feet. The temperature was 60 degrees and all conditions were favorable. The Marines were to execute a fast rope rappel to board the ship. After gliding 30 feet down onto the landing deck, 12 Force Recon Marines and 1 naval medic would simulate retaking the ship by force. At that point, the SEAL team would reinforce the air assault from the water using their Special Boat Unit Rigid Hull Inflatable Boats, or RIBs. However, at about a quarter mile behind the oiler, Corporal Adam Johns told one of the pilots that the helicopter was coming in too fast. As he slowed down, the pilot said, quote, "Yep, I'm going in fast." Misunderstandings. About 100 yards from the ship, the chief mate aboard Pecos saw the helicopter approaching and provided arm and hand signals, telling the pilots to increase power and altitude. However, the landing safety officer had only been assigned to the post that day and was dressed in white instead of the traditional yellow. The pilot and co-pilot weren't informed about the change, and thus they dismissed the indications. Footage captured at the scene shows how the helicopter then continued downward on a low and fast trajectory. A Navy captain overseeing the operation noticed the aircraft coming in hot and screamed into the radio, quote, "Power." but no one heard the instructions aboard the Sea Knight. Motioning frantically, the landing safety officer on the deck struggled to convey to the pilots that the helicopter was coming in too low. Corporal Johns, on his part, affirmed, quote, "Looking good, and keep driving it in." Experienced Captain James I. Luckhart and Captain Andrew Q. Smith reckoned that the helicopter was 15 to 20 feet above the deck. But suddenly Johns noticed that the aircraft was losing altitude and made a call for power. The pilots then acknowledged the issue for the first time. Meanwhile, in the cabin's left rear, Sergeant Robert Evers heard a thumping sound. Wondering if it had just been the aircraft landing on the deck, he asked over his headset, quote, "What's going on?" However, Evans did not look outside the window at any time. Had he followed the standard operating procedures, he would have realized that the left rear wheel had struck the safety net aft of the ship and became entangled, but the damage was done. Following the observer's signals, the captain finally increased the aircraft's power. But ensnared in the life-saving equipment, the front of the Sea Knight lifted off and pivoted about the rear. It then tilted and twisted to its port side, and as the rotors shattered on contact with the surface, the helicopter plummeted into the Pacific Ocean. Only 7 seconds had passed from touchdown to splashdown. At 1:16 p.m., the Sea Knight momentarily floated in the water before starting to sink into the depths of the Pacific. Top-heavy by design, the aircraft then turned belly up, pulled by the weight of the engines. Rescue efforts. The Marines inside the helicopter were rattled and failed to remember their training. Some ditched their heavy equipment, and they all scrambled as they tried to find a way out of the flooding vehicle, but the cabin was growing darker by the second. Several crew members managed to get out through the so-called hellhole, an emergency opening on the helicopter floor that now provided an escape. Most rushed to save themselves, but Gunnery Sergeant James Page did not. Although he was seated nearest to a door, and without any equipment weighing him down, he did not leave anyone behind. Sergeant Evers recalled seeing Page assisting the others. Quote, "I saw Gunny Page. Somehow he got more forward, and he was helping people out of the crew door also. We went down, it got dark, I lost him. I couldn't see him anymore." On the surface, the SEALs aided those who could egress, while the sirens on Pecos screeched at full volume. But only 11 men found their way out. 9 were found stable, but 2 were urgently airlifted to Balboa Naval Hospital in San Diego. The search and rescue operation, deployed by the Navy and Coast Guard, used every diver, helicopter, and ship at their disposal, with the efforts continuing as the night fell with the help of night goggles and infrared radar. However, all hope was soon abandoned. Despite the flotation devices, helicopters are known for sinking significantly faster than airplanes once in the water. And this CH-46 raised many questions in particular. A troubled history. Speculation about the cause of the crash initially centered around mechanical problems with the aging helicopter. Its reputation as a safe and effective transport had been challenged in recent months, as the all-weather day or night assault transport helicopter, used exclusively by the Marine Corps at the time, had been involved in several other accidents. There had been 2 crashes a year earlier, which had claimed 3 lives, and 71 incidents documented over the previous 11 years regarding leaks or failures were unearthed by an Ohio newspaper. The largest loss of life involved a crash that took 15 Marines into the Atlantic in 1986, shortly after taking off from the carrier Guadalcanal. Retired Navy captain and helicopter pilot Steve Milliken stated at the time, quote, "I have a lot of loyalty to this aircraft, but it needs replacing." A memorial service for the victims of the Pecos crash was held 11 days later. Gunnery Sergeant James Page was bestowed a posthumous Navy and Marine Corps medal for his heroism as he helped others escape, quote, "in total disregard of his own safety." Afterward, the Marine Corps implemented a thorough training program to teach helicopter passengers how to pull out of a sinking aircraft. Marine Corps spokeswoman Lieutenant Patricia Restrepo commented, quote, "We try to do everything possible to make our training safe, but inherently, what the Marine Corps does is dangerous." Thank you for watching our video. Please give us a thumbs up and don't hesitate to leave a comment below. And for more stories from the seas and skies, don't forget to subscribe to all of our Dark Documentaries channels. Stay tuned.